let's talk about this latest World Health Organization gearing up for its next pandemic. And it already has basically its next virus all ready to go. Like, we were wondering, they've been warning us, by the way, that this is about to happen. They've been telling us, like, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when this is going to happen. And by the way, they were gaming out COVID months ahead of time, right? We were learning about their sort of game theory and everything that they were rolling out and testing months ahead of time.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Fauci even told us, of course, that it's going to happen under Trump's calendar.
Yeah.
And it absolutely did. So here's the next one that they're already gaming out in Africa.
Okay. So it is called Marburg virus. The World Health Organization already has a vaccine team in place. In fact, we know when they started if we read their documents, which we did today, and we're going to show it to you. So yesterday, on Tuesday, Valentine's Day, the World Health Organization convened an emergency meeting to discuss an outbreak of Marburg virus in Central Africa. Marburg, essentially, I just want to make this clear, is a town in Germany where the virus was first discovered in 1967. It is presumably not there now, but maybe we'll see this called out as a racist virus name because it's linked to a place that has happened before.
That's good. They're going to change the name because it's not as sexy. It needs to be able to, like monkeypox. It needs to be something that we put on television and that they try to scare us all into going and getting a vaccine for.
Right. Well, they wanted us to stop associating COVID with China. Because they thought that was a racist thing to do. So Marburg is associated with Germany where there is not an outbreak. So I'm just predicting right now that could cause a problem because we've been through it.
I'm going to guess gorilla flu just because it affects mostly primates.
It does, in fact. Yes.
Although we're on kind of a tear with picking on Germany lately. We just blew up their pipeline. So, we just blew up the pipeline to, bringing natural gas to Germany and throwing that country into chaos. So why don't we call it the Heidelberg virus?
Yes. In fact, Marburg is associated with monkeys and gorillas and bats as well. So we can choose species. Bats are not a primate.
No, not that I know of.
Right, Philip?
They're a mammal.
They're definitely not a primate.
They're not a primate. They're not a member of the monkey family.
Unless it's like one of those, like a duck-billed platypus is not a duck. It's like, is that a trick question? No. Okay. So we all learned that together. Bats are not a primate. Okay, so the World Health Organization says that at least 9 people have died from the virus that is now spreading through Equatorial Guinea with a confirmed 16 cases. Now, they're saying that based on past outbreaks, they have a fatality rate of 88%. But this one, I can do the math also, 9 out of 16 cases, it's 56% fatality rate. Not great.
No, Virginia says in our chat, says it's very, very dangerous. Very, very nasty.
Yes.
Virginia Vikings. It's very, very nasty. This Marburg thing. Yeah.
It's a hemorrhagic fever. So it's pretty nasty. I've seen estimates as high as 90% fatality rate.
Wow. And that's a point too with COVID, right? With COVID, it wasn't as nasty, right? It was not as bad as they wanted it to be.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. Like we sat down and watched that movie, during lockdowns, and we're like, oh, well, if, the pandemic looked like this, where everyone was throwing up, we might...
Throwing up blood.
Yeah, we might feel a little bit different.
But, now we got it.
But yeah, so that's what we got. So absolutely, we should not be downplaying this, like, oh, they're going to make us think that this is scary. This is scary enough on its own. So we're just going to talk about what the World Health Organization is doing and not act like they are faking us out, right? Because it's scary. We don't want anybody to get it. We also don't want anybody to exploit it. We don't want either of those things. The World Health Organization says that they convened an urgent meeting of the Marburg Virus Vaccine Consortium, which is called MARVAC, to discuss the outbreak. This is their update on Tuesday's meeting. Well, what's MARVAC? What is that, and when did it become a thing? Turns out it became a thing in October. Here is the paper. I'm just going to show you the title page, An Introduction to MARVAC, to the Marburg Virus Vaccine Consortium. It is dated, if you zoom in there, October 13th, 2022. So relatively new, this MARVAC vaccine program for Marburg virus.
It's so convenient how they managed to get these things just a few months ahead of time, isn't it?
Right. And so who is involved in MARVAC? Well, let's zoom in there. On the title page, next one, Okay, Institute for Virology from the National Institute of Health, Fauci related, National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, U.S. COVID response at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, all other kinds of, health departments and colleges and other states, science labs. Also, Boston University School of Medicine, where they did gain-of-function research on COVID.
Yeah.
And the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So a lot of the same players that were controlling the COVID pandemic already are involved in MARVAC. So
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm surprised at the bottom it doesn't say, and Bill Gates.
Right.
Well, they don't have to because, as we know, and we've talked about on this show, the World Health Organization is mostly funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So at the heart of the World Health Organization is Bill Gates. Mm-hmm. He has his hands in all of this. And each of those institutions we just talked about are also funded. Boston University, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Each of these are funded by him.
Right.
So we don't need to put his name there.
Say, yep.
He does it through surreptitious ways.
Okay, so what is Marburg virus? How would we recognize it if we saw it? It is in the same family as Ebola virus. It's said to cause a viral hemorrhagic fever, which can lead to bleeding from the nose and mouth. Symptoms can include lethargy, dehydration, nausea, vomiting, sore throat, and abdominal pain. And where does it come from? Well, according to this statement from the WHO, it is transmitted to humans by fruit bats and spread through direct contact with bodily fluids of infected people, surfaces, and materials. But if you read the MARVAC paper, it also does mention primates as well. So I don't know why there's bats and primates, why it seems to be in multiple species. But that
I know yesterday I neglected to explain something that I knew, but I'll go ahead and throw this one in there.
Okay.
Bats are oftentimes what they call reservoir species, which means they carry, but they don't contract the virus.
Oh.
So bats are actually a fairly common reservoir species for viruses. So but when they're talking about the difference, the bats can carry it, but they don't get it. But Marburg is a filovirus, which basically affects primates. So primates are the ones that get infected. Bats can just carry it around.
A reservoir creature.
Maybe.
And they call
we should
it
just eradicate all bats.
Species.
Okay, so I'm just thinking this out in real time because the statement on the emergency MARVAC meeting today only mentioned bats as
right. So it doesn't sound like it's very transmissible.
Is this another thing that they're trying to sort of wash out anything that could sound woke, like to say primates maybe can be called racist in a way? I mean, because the MARVAC paper says that it is transmissible mostly through the outbreaks have been observed in non-human primates. That was the original outbreaks. So I'm just wondering because the statement today did not mention primates at all.
Well, and also it's not very transmissible from what I'm gathering, right? That they're scaring us. They're having this emergency meeting. They're talking about, they're all wearing masks. They're talking about the transmissibility of this. But if it's just through bats, through primates, through surfaces and materials,
but
what
you
does that
can
mean?
contract it from infected individuals. So obviously you want to isolate people who have it and not have a spread in the community.
Of course, and this is exactly what they want, right? This is what they've been prepping for. They want us to stay. Remember, at the heart of all of this, guys, this is written down, and what they're telling us is that they want us to work from home, get rid of our cars. Europe just this week announced that by 2035, they're getting rid of combustible automobiles, right? That's their plan by 2035.
Yeah.
They want us to work from home. They want 15-minute cities. They don't want us driving, and they want this. They want us to stay in these environments like this.
Well, you're making large leaps about something that people actually have. Like, there are 16 cases. We absolutely should all not want there to be more. And yes, the World Health Organization does make big power grabs. But I think in the context of discussing this, we can't look at this data and say, well, they're saying it's deadly, but maybe it's not. They just want to scare us. Like, that's irresponsible of us to be saying.
But be very, I'm just saying, we got to walk into this cautiously. 3 years ago, we know what they did to us, right? So all I'm saying is watch this very closely. And if they start to move towards, here we go with lockdowns again, here we go with keep bringing our kids home from school again. And
Well, sure, there could be a narrative like that virus wasn't scary enough, so let's make them start bleeding from their noses, then they'll stay home. I get that. But in the context of this segment right now, we are looking at this happening to real people and this data. And I don't want to be like, yeah, right, they're saying that. Like, that's not responsible of us to do.
I want to bring up something somebody said in chat that if it's true, kind of ties it to this would take some research, but it's Eclectic Dyslexic says Marburg comes from polyvinyl chloride in the water system, which would tie right into the train thing because that's what is that not what it had in it?
What?
The vinyl chloride in Ohio?
The polyvinyl chloride, yeah, in Ohio.
What are the... I don't understand.
No, there's no relation to polyvinyl chloride and Marburg virus. This has been around since like 1967.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just saying that's what somebody said in chat, so I was just like curious.
Yeah, so vinyl chloride has nothing to do with it. So we're going to shoot conspiracy theories down. I'm simply throwing out there what the World Health Organization and the WEF has been pushing for.
Sure.
So I'm just saying to walk cautiously when they start to tell us and try to scare us, and that's what I'm trying to make sure that we
but don't come up here and armpit fart on every data point that I'm presenting from a scary virus. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I want us to take this with a grain of salt and be educated.
Yes.
But we should not, read everything that they transmit and be like, yeah, that can be.
I didn't say that. Did I say that, chat?
Is his demeanor like that? Philip, take my side.
Look, we've just been through 3 years of them lying to us.
I know better than to get involved.
Yeah. Philip's a smart man. Okay, go ahead. I won't interrupt anymore with armpit farting. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'll have a coffee.
All right, do that.
I'll have a Mandalorian.
What was it? Oh, I want to tell you about vaccines. And you can...
Hold on. Let me armpit fart on that one. Oh, they want to give us vaccines already? It's amazing that they have these vaccines already rolled out.
But they're not mRNA. They're not mRNA. Right.
Let's go.
Clayton. All right. You keep it to yourself for a little bit,
right.
And then later you can huff and puff and blow your house down. Okay. Marvac has tested vaccines, but not in humans. And they say that they have had limited success with these vaccines, so they do want to continue testing them. They seem to already have a plan for them. This seems a little premature. Look at the plan. This was written in October. They think that if we get fast-acting single-dose vaccines deployed in vaccination campaigns during outbreaks, then routine vaccination of at-risk populations could be achieved with several candidate vaccines. And then regardless, the need for boosters will be determined by the durability of the acquired immunity during the respective vaccine campaign. I don't know about that. That just seems like a little too specific for a vaccine they really don't have and don't have approved. Don't you guys think a little premature to talk about a vaccine campaign when you haven't actually done human trials? I'd be interested to see if I can do a Wayback Machine and find any kind of vaccine plan like this around COVID. That was going through my head today, but I didn't have time to do that.
Isn't that considered the speed of science that you have the plan before the need
That's
the
what I
vaccine
think.
and the schedule ready before? Yep.
Yeah. What about treatments? Well, there are some of those too that show some promising signs if taken early. Again, see this table from Marvac, and they have a bunch of antivirals here. Some also that were used on COVID with various degrees of success. This is just one page. There's 2 pages of these antiviral results. But if you see in the far right, the survival % rate, a lot of them are, fairly high, not terrible. If there was a plan to get these in people who were affected fast, that could be encouraging. The conclusions of this paper introducing WARPAC is that we need WARPAC and we need global research coordinations, including sharing of assays and continuous efforts on capacity building among private and public sectors. So we need a global health plan. Basically, global coordination. A global health system, you say? Global powers, where actually Elon Musk had something to say about that just this week during the World Government Summit this week. Take a listen.
One thing I should say, and I know this is called the World Government Summit, But I think we should be maybe a little bit concerned about actually becoming too much of a single world government. If I may say, that we want to avoid creating a civilizational risk by having, frankly, this may sound a little odd, too much cooperation between governments. If you look at, say, at history and the rise and fall of civilizations, that really all throughout history, civilizations have risen and fallen, but it hasn't meant the doom of humanity as a whole, because there've been all these separate civilizations that were separated by great distances. And so, say like while Rome was falling, Islam was rising, and so you had like the sort of caliphate doing incredibly well while Rome was doing terribly. And that actually ended up being a source of preservation of knowledge and many scientific advancements. And so, so I think we want to be a little bit cautious about being too much of a single civilization, because if we are too much of a single civilization, then if the whole thing may collapse. I'm obviously not suggesting war or anything like that, but I think we want to be a little bit wary of actually cooperating too much. It sounds a little odd, but we want to have some amount of civilizational diversity, such that if something does go wrong with some part of civilization, that the whole thing doesn't collapse, and humanity keeps moving forward.
Okay.
Well, I mean, so, just to put in context here, the World Health Organization, right, funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation overwhelmingly, right? Mm-hmm. An organization that is trying to take unelected control away from sovereign governments, right? We championed and cheered when Africa stood up and said no to World Health Organization omnipotent control of their governments, right? So that we would cede power to this unelected body during a next pandemic, that we would give them, and that's exactly what the United States is doing. So forget your constitution, forget whatever governments and freedoms you have in your own countries. Here you go, World Health Organization. Do whatever you want with us. There's a unified body of unelected globalists, billionaires, who are going to tell us what to do the next time we have one of these things. And it's like, oh, this is never going to happen again, right? It just happened 3 years ago. And we're literally still seeing mandates. We see Brazil in the past few days. We see Lula da Silva in Brazil calling for mandates for people who do not get vaccines for their children. They'll lose government services, right? This is happening. This is still happening.
Yeah.
So, I think I totally agree with Elon here, which is absolutely we shouldn't be ceding control of sovereign countries. And that's exactly what Klaus Schwab has been talking about. He said it multiple times. He just said it again a few weeks ago in Davos.
Right, because you can read into the implications of this, is that if the outbreak's in Africa and everyone globally has to comply with vaccine requirements, well, that's not a world anyone wants to live in.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.